All right. Well, I mean, it's showing our voices, and hey, there's our faces. All right, it's
Yeah.
working, maybe for some value of working. I don't know. We'll see what happens when Twitch decides to stop streaming me, or my internet connection gets wonky, or I don't know. I don't know what goes on in these worlds. But good afternoon, Whitney. How are you today?
I'm doing so well. I'm really happy to be here.
Well, I'm delighted to have you here, and you are part of this cohort of coworkers of mine who I've yet to meet in the flesh. And so I
Yeah.
assume you have legs, but I don't know that for a fact. And I guess we will find out maybe sometime later this year or next year. I don't know. I've given up trying to
Also,
make
who knows
predictions.
what filters I've been putting on myself
Right?
this whole time.
Right?
I may
Exactly.
actually have cat ears and I'm doing the filter to make them go away.
Yeah, see,
You don't
people forget
know.
filters work in multiple directions. So it's entirely possible. We don't really know who some of us are until we get to go out in the world. Although I did on Friday, I had my first in-person thing. My graduate school class met at the U for the first time in 18 months, I guess it was, which was
Yeah.
both good and bad. So the downside for me is when I show up on campus, that's when I discover that I don't have some weird thing that I need to like connect to the internet. And I usually don't find
Okay.
that out until class is starting and I can't get online. And then I'm like, well, I don't have time to
Uh-huh.
go to the tech thing now. So I guess I'll just use my phone. Why not? And it mostly works out. But it was nice to actually see people though. I wasn't
So
against
with
that.
your students, these are people you've known for 18 months and you're just now seeing in real
No,
life?
no, these are all new for me. This is the first time I've had this group of students, but
Okay.
this this would be the first time this cohort has been on campus because last year would have been
Okay.
completely remote. And I think there's a decent chance that there'll be some remote this year. Actually, I do have one student who is currently back home, and so he had to dial in anyway. So I was still zooming even though I had most of my students in front of me, but
Right on.
I don't know. It,
Right
it is
on.
it's weird times. May you live in interesting times is, the most I guess egregious curse you can apply to someone.
Yeah, I can't imagine what it is to you have more experience like raising a kid when like a streaming device is something you can put in their hands when they're
Right?
a toddler.
Right?
Yeah.
Well,
So,
I have thought about that though, because my son has grown up with that just being the norm, right? That
mhm.
a phone is a slab of glass, and
Mhm.
the idea that a phone would have like physical buttons, like what? Yeah, that just makes no
The
sense.
rotary.
Yes, yes, that
Yeah.
totally throws him
Mhm.
for a loop. But yeah, he is very much of the opinion that the whole world, you just press a button and whatever you want to watch shows up. So and
Yeah.
Tasha's in the comments this morning.
Hi,
After it's afternoon for her too.
Tasha.
Hi, Tasha. We got to get Tasha on here. Boy, that would
Yeah.
be that would be an interesting one. We'll have to work on
Yeah.
that. We'll figure something
She's
out.
both
So
smart and cool.
darn right
She
she is.
she fits the bill. Uh-huh.
Best boss in the business. There's no getting around it.
Yeah. I was gonna say my son is now 22, but like at 16, he had no motivation to drive because he could see any of his friends at any
Of
time.
course.
Like I had my driver's license the second, my learner's permit, yeah,
Right?
right when I could.
Right?
And he just had no motivation to learn to drive and just doesn't really care about seeing friends in real life. He's just gonna
Sure.
play games with them online versus sitting next to them. It's the same thing. So different.
No, I hear you there. I had that same experience. I turned, whatever the magic age was, and it's like, yep, you're taking driver's lessons, and I'm sure my parents were delighted the second that I got my license. And I understand why now because my son just started high school, and since he's getting school out of our district, we have to get him there and pick him up, and
Oh,
I cannot wait until I don't have to be one part of the Uber process there. So,
yeah.
that will be
That's There's like a big sense of freedom as a parent. Like as soon as your kid is potty trained, that's like,
yes.
wow. And then another one as soon as your kid can drive.
Right, right.
And
Yeah,
you're like,
it's funny how that works. Funny how that works. Although I swear my phone is actually like trolling me because over the last couple of months it's been sending me those 3 years ago today, 5 years ago today, and my son has
oh,
changed so much. It's like
uh-huh.
he doesn't even look like the same creature. It's like, oh God, oh God. Yeah, Tasha and I were talking about that. I sent her a photo of him from before his first soccer match this year, and so I couldn't believe that was the same kid that was with me in Paris a couple years ago. So nature of the beast, I guess. You keep feeding them, they grow. So that's all on me.
So, the only answer is to stop feeding them so
That's
they
true.
can stay our
That's true.
precious little things forever.
Exactly.
Hmm.
Exactly. Well, Whitney, why don't you give us your origin story? How did you get into this weird tech world that we live in, and then we'll just see where the muse takes us today.
Okay, my origin story may just take the whole time. How
And
much?
that's perfect.
uh, let's see. Where do I even start? My degree is from the Ohio State University.
OH.
Um, I and and I've always had like a push and pull between the creative pursuits and more technical pursuits. And so when I first chose a major, I chose architecture because that has a good mix of both. But then I got pregnant and decided to change my major because architecture just has such a long window to be able to have a point where I'm actually making money. So instead, I chose to switch to fine art where I'll just never make money. So
Right. Problem solved.
exactly. So I majored in photography specifically, which again, the push and pull between the technical, very technical
Yeah.
way to be creative. Um, uh, I'm just skipping over some of the personal details, but at some point I got to a place where I started a wedding photography business. And it was honestly more out of necessity, breaking up with my son's father and needing a way to make money quickly. And as
Sure.
far as photography goes, it's something I had experience with as an assistant to make money on the side. And it's like, okay, I got the skills here. And then I started my own business and I ran it for 10 years. I had photographers who worked for me. And later I'll talk about too, I think there's a lot of skills I learned as a wedding photographer and as like, I guess I'll talk about it now, not later. So as a wedding photographer, definitely like as a manager of people, but also in terms of working with couples, educating them about what's possible and then what they, well, first listen to their story. So
Sure.
this is going to relate very much to helping a enterprise migrate to cloud or something. Like first listen to their story, understand their concerns, their pain points, understand their venue, what time of day, what lighting they have, and then turn around and tell them, okay, here's what we need to be successful. Here's the schedule we need to do. Here's where we leave extra time for these sorts of portraits that are that priority for you. And so there's just a lot of communication there in terms of, I have a lot of technical knowledge and a lot of technical skills, and this story can go a lot of ways, and I'm going to help you navigate that. So did that for 10 years, but eventually, maybe the whole time, the business ran me instead of me running the business, as it often goes with small businesses. So if I'm on top of the email, then I'm behind on the editing. If have a ton of shoots, then I'm just behind on everything. And it really, I was very unhappy by the end of that decade. And I didn't really, you know how sometimes you're unhappy and you just don't let yourself even really look at the reality of what's happening around you because there's nothing you can do about it. And it's just, So I have two brothers, both of whom will play a role in this story. But the first brother is Jordan. He is a professional musician. His project is goes under the name Mutual Benefit, but he writes all the music and does all the composition. So Mutual Benefit got a lot of attention in 2014. They made Pitchfork's Best 50 Albums of the Year, Best New Music. Just a certain album called Love's Crushing Diamond just blew up. And he needed to put together a live band to go on tour for the year for 2014. And so he invited me to be in the band, like to play with him and sing harmonies. I play keys and sing harmonies in that band. And so that was like the thing I needed to be like, I quit. I'm never photographing a thing ever again. My camera gear is up in my attic right now collecting dust. Like I have a very nice gear and I haven't touched it forever. And so I went on tour that year. I put all my stuff into storage. My partner at the time wasn't supportive. Got out of that, and I went on tour for a year, and it was amazing. It was also a lot of hanging with stinky people and sleeping on floors and overall drinking too much. And
super romantic.
But also it was a super cool time. Hi, Layla.
Yeah, I
And
just saw Layla was in there, and I thought, hey, Layla, you're gonna have to be on here at some point too. We already had that conversation, but
oh
Whitney said
yeah,
yes first, so
cool and smart, cool and smart. Yeah. Um, apparently you need to be cool and smart to be also in the chat in this.
I mean, it doesn't hurt. It doesn't hurt. So I assume Neil will
Give up
show up. Neil
some.
Busing will show up at some point today, and will give me some grief if I have not mentioned Ted Lasso. So I will eventually bring up Ted Lasso, but I'm caught
Yeah,
up.
I would like to say that I heard about Ted Lasso from you first.
Yeah, I
So
try. I think I've done my best to evangelize for Ted Lasso. Maybe I should change my title to that, Ted Lasso evangelist or something, because it is the content that we needed during the middle of a pandemic. So
yeah. Okay, so wedding photographer, quit everything, went on tour, came back. I didn't want to photograph again so badly that I went into food service, which no regrets, and it's a great career, and it was actually super fun. But like kind of feeling around for what I want to do next. Meanwhile, my other brother is a programmer at Twitter. He does iOS. And my son is in school at University of Nebraska for software engineering. And they're both like, hey, you would like this. Hey, you should try it out. And so finally I was like, I'll do it. And wrote my first line of code in January 2019. Worked my way through a process to get into coding school.
yep.
And so that overall, between getting accepted and doing all the pre-course, took maybe like 300 hours, 200 to 300 hours worth of work. Got into coding school, started that July, the same year, 2019. Did 6-hour days, 11-hour days, 6 days a week for 3
Ouch.
months. Yeah, it's super intense. Graduated October 2019. And then I had my first job in the industry at IBM as a cloud pack acceleration team member in November of 2019. So it all happened over 11 months. And everything I'd been learning the whole time was full stack web development and JavaScript specifically.
Mm-hmm.
And then I got a job doing cloud technology and have
Perfect.
barely touched any of that stuff since. Yeah.
Well, Layla, it's not a threat, it's a promise, just so
I
you know.
promise.
But it's funny you mentioned that, because like I have the quote unquote traditional computer science degree, and I was
Mhm,
taught C++. And when I did my
mhm.
little intro spiel with my new students on Friday, I said, can any of you guess how many lines of C++ that I've written in anger? And of course the answer to that is 0. I've never written a line of C++ that's gone into production. So that
Uh-huh.
isn't an abnormal thing, frankly, in
Uh-huh.
our line of work, right? You learn one thing and then basically don't use that specific thing, right? We use all the sort of ancillary bits around it, but
Yeah. I think what you're getting, hopefully, if it's a good interview process, you're getting vetted for your aptitude to learn and your aptitude to stay cutting edge and
right.
not necessarily for a specific technology.
Well, and
Because
it's
even if you use that technology right now, who's going to say like that specific technology will even be around in a couple of
oh,
years?
100%. I mean,
Mhm.
that is the one unifying factor of our industry. There will be
Mhm.
something new in 6 months, a year, 2 years, 5 years,
Mhm.
and that's another one of these themes that I sort of push my grad students through is, hey, this is just an instance of change. And there will be
Mhm.
many more instances of change, whether that's when Java first came out, whether that's when we started doing, sort of, convention over configuration, just the different types
Mhm.
of web approaches. We've had the different front end technologies, and now cloud is just yet another instance of change. There'll
Mhm.
be something else.
The
I
only
don't know
thing
what
that
it
never
is.
changes is that things are always going to change.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Someone should probably do a talk based on that, right? But no, it is it
Different
is
every time you see it. You
well, it
get it.
is, right? Because that is this industry, and I think that's why I've always been frustrated with the way we tend to try to hire people, as we go through like this checklist of skills. It's like, well, hang on,
Mhm.
are you still going to be doing insert? How about prototype? Anybody do prototype JS anymore? Not really. How about jQuery? Anybody doing jQuery these
Uh-huh.
days? I mean, yeah, a little bit, but those
Yeah.
were big technologies for a window, and then they
Uh-huh.
kind of get pushed aside, and that's okay. It's the nature of the industry.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, and then you found your way to us, and I'm
I
so
did.
I'm so
So,
glad you did.
yeah. So at IBM, I actually used a lot of my wedding photography skills in terms of like the soft skills of getting to understand a situation and understand like I have like a knowledge of IBM products that could be used to fit the situation. But instead of trying to push it, first I listen and
Right.
learn, and then and then outside of that, I happened to see on the company Slack that there was a tryout, like an audition for an SME to do their Lightboard talks. So IBM Cloud has a pretty big YouTube channel, and they have SMEs who present less than 10 minutes on a technology, and I was shocked when they contacted me that they wanted me to even try out for it. And I kept saying, you guys, I've been doing this 6 months. Like,
Right.
you're going to let me be on your channel. They're like, no, you're great. People love you. It's like, okay. So I think like the theme of everything in these recent years has just been like, I am scared out of my mind, but I'm going to try. Like, this doesn't hurt to
Right.
try. Yeah.
Right.
So I was just like, oh, I'll go for it. And then I had some success with it. It was also maybe shocking how little anyone was double checking my work at that time too. So I did that on my own though. I wanted it, of course, it was in my best interest to have it be technically very accurate. So I
Right.
was found myself a technical mentor and asked him to look over everything. And he's still an amazing friend.
Awesome.
So then making those videos, I had some success with that. And that's how I found my way to my dream job.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
Outstanding.
Yeah.
And
Here I am. I'm
yeah,
so happy to be here.
Layla says she misses jQuery. I miss jQuery. I
Yeah.
really see. I really struggled when I started to make the transition to Angular because I was so in the jQuery way of doing things that I'd be
Uh-huh.
trying to do something in Angular, and I kept running into like, well, I can do that in 2 lines of jQuery. It's like, but I
Okay.
know that's not what I should be doing here. As I try to really get into the spirit of Angular and do it the Angular way, and
Uh-huh.
yeah, it just didn't really take for me. So nothing against Angular, right? It's great if it works
Yeah.
for you, fantastic, but just to each their own.
As long as it scales out, as long as it does what it needs to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Use all your tools.
it's interesting you bring up like the intersection between like art and technology, art and science, because I've always
Mhm.
felt that computer science really shouldn't be science. It should be like computer art
Mhm.
or something, because
Yeah.
what we do is a lot more artistic than I think we give it credit. I mean, not in the same way of like
Absolutely.
composing a picture or painting or anything like that, but that process of creating a program
Mhm.
that is much more artistic than I think we give it credit for. And I wish more people would sort of appreciate that side of it. It isn't poetry, but it is a creative process.
But I absolutely agreed. Even just what you said, like I can solve the same problem in Angular versus jQuery. Like it just like art, you have a lot of different tools. You're
Right.
gonna have an end product that you want to express an idea, or yeah, and you take your own journey to get there. It can be done infinite number of ways, and there's some self-expression in there.
Oh, absolutely. Well, and to your
Mm.
point, the other piece of this that I think we miss is the listening part.
Mm-hmm.
My wife's a business analyst, and so I get a lot of that from her side. She likes to joke that her job is to tell people like me what to do, and my response is, "No, honey, I'm an architect, so I just build whatever is most convenient for me." She didn't like that too much, but the it, a lot of the problems that I've seen in technology boil down to not a technology choice. It wasn't we used Angular instead of React or jQuery
Uh-huh.
instead of Prototype. It was we didn't listen, or we didn't get to the real problem here. There was, as Rich Hickey would call it, sort of it's a problem of misconception. And then we
Uh-huh.
don't get that chance to really dig into, well, what is the ask here? What do you really want us to build? What do you really need? We get
Yeah.
so focused on just punching out the bricks. But
Yeah. Or yeah, what's the measure of success? What's going to make you happy with the solution at the end? And not like, and it's not necessarily the most cutting edge thing all the time. And that's something we get excited about too. Like, oh, we can use this new technology here, but maybe it's not the best solution.
right.
And yeah.
Yeah, we practice a lot of resume driven design, as I like to refer to it. I just want to put this on my resume, and never
Yeah.
mind whether it really makes sense or not. But
Yeah.
is there anything that you look back on in your career as a photographer that you find yourself drawing on in this new space of teaching people how to play with computers?
And with the photography, in
or just
general.
like running the business too. I mean, I think that's another part of this that people, when you were talking about how the business runs you, and it
Mhm.
made me think of that phrase that, oh yeah, when you run your own business, it's great. You can set your own hours. You can work any 16 hours a day you want,
Exactly. That's so true. Yeah, I'd say I definitely fell into a trap of perfectionism
Sure.
with photography where I wanted everything to be lined up perfectly and have the perfect color balance um and the people who are viewing the photos who are just like regular people, like that's a photo of my grandma. They don't care whether or not it's slightly warmer than,
Right.
and I would spend I have a lot of regret over the amount of time I spent making it perfect when perfection did not matter at all. And so definitely there's like kind of like an 80-20 model, right? That I
Sure.
learned about since I've been in the software world where
Hmm.
like 80% of effort goes toward that last 20% of perfection.
Yep.
And I wish I knew that or had more of that idea in my mind at the time. And then one thing like, well, it can happen in this world, but is less likely to happen is the emotions that are tied around wedding photography.
Oh,
And that's
sure.
one reason I'll never even consider going back
Sure.
to that world. But there's a lot of my communication skills were developed to avoid those emotional problems. For example, insisting that I have a list of portraits given to me. So I have very clear uh, communication about what in your mind you think of when you think of wedding portraits,
Yeah.
because a lot of people have different ideas about that. And I had a groom's mom call me once, and she was upset that she wasn't in more of the portraits. But I had that list, so
Right.
I'd be like, "Yeah, here you go. Yeah,
Works as
you were."
designed.
You need to take this up with your son. But
Hmm.
even then, like, oh, that might get me off the hook in the business world. But in a wedding photography world, then
Right.
she's crying. She's like, he loves his dad's wife more than he loves me. And like,
Oh
I'm
God.
just like, how do I quit right now? How can I get out of this? Yeah.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
that's a great example because we have that same problem in software. Just manifests
Hmm.
itself in a different way. It's in and this is a lot of the conversations I have with my wife around software anyway, are like, how do you tease that out from people? Because
Hmm.
I think part of what makes software hard is that people can't conceptualize what they need or want until they see it.
Hmm.
And it's challenging when you're like, well, did you want something kind of like this or something kind of like that? And they sort of get stuck into
Hmm.
this, we've always done it this way, so obviously what I really need is just Excel in the browser because we used to do it in a spreadsheet.
Hmm.
But there might be a better way. Did we want to explore a better way? Like, no, Excel's fine. Like,
Yeah.
then just use Excel.
Yeah. Yeah. Or two, I think in software, there's a lot of fear around change because, like,
Yeah.
this is how we've always done it. Not only am I comfortable doing it, but in this space, I'm the expert. So if we move to a new
Yes.
technology, now I'm not the expert anymore. That's really scary. Yeah. So I guess there are emotions in this
I've
world too.
I've seen that with business people too when we build them a new system. I
Uh
had this experience in kind of the early aughts, I want to say it was, whatever we call the zeros.
huh.
And we were replacing this old green screen system, and I
uh
had
huh.
one customer in particular. I mean, she was the undisputed expert on this system. Anytime we're like, how does
Yeah.
it work? Well, we go talk to her. And she
Yeah.
could go through those green screens so fast. There were multiple times I have to say, I'm sorry, could you do that a little more slowly? And she really couldn't
Yeah.
because it was just I just mashed the keys. I don't, and I'd ask like,
Uh
what
huh.
key combination did you just press? And she would just like put her fingers this way because she doesn't even know, right? It's just her
Okay.
hand just does it.
Yeah.
Well, she wasn't so keen on getting a new system
Uh huh.
because she
Yeah.
was going to be no longer the expert.
Yeah.
She was going to be at
Her
the same
identity.
level as anybody
Yeah.
that came right off the street.
Uh
And
huh.
I very distinctly remember being in a meeting where her boss basically, because the old system had a lot of codes. You had to know all the codes.
Uh
And the new
huh.
system, you weren't going to have to know all the codes. And this kind
Which
of bothered her. And she said, well, you just have to learn them. I had to learn them. And her boss had to basically say to her, no, that's not how it's going to work. Like, I can't
uh-huh.
take 3 years for someone off the street to master all the codes. So no, we're not going to
Yeah.
make them continue to enter it by hand. But we did have to work at her. She would
Yeah.
subtly sabotage the system because it was personal, it was emotional,
Uh-huh.
and that happens in software too.
Yeah. And that's a second defeatist mindset in there that you mentioned, where it's like, well, I had to go through this long
Right.
tunnel of hard learning. And so you mean someone else gets to just do it easily after I went through all this hard work?
Mm-hmm.
Like, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
I guess we don't have any bridezillas, maybe. I don't know.
I resent the gendering of the term. I've seen all
It's just a TV show.
many
I mean,
Zillas
isn't that
of
the way they always
many.
phrase it? Insert the gender neutral term for me of a marriage
Yes,
person who's in love with the
they're
drama.
yes, there are many Zillas. They're not they're often the bride, and I have stories there too, but they're certainly parents and siblings
Oh, that's a
and
good point.
grooms and everyone. Yeah, yeah. Somebody's got something going on. I had one time I was a
Spousezilla, Layla calls
spousezilla.
it.
I like it.
Spousezilla. I like it.
Yes. Yes, it was very common in the industry. I couldn't fight it. Even like just to be like, bride this, your bride's gonna want that, your bride's gonna want this. Like that's also assuming a heteronormative couple. I don't like that. And then in coding school, I totally developed a reputation for any time someone's assuming the male gender
Oh,
when
sure.
talking about a developer. I'm like, or
Mm-hmm.
she. Like I should have
Mm-hmm.
just had a T-shirt that said or
Or
she.
she.
But yeah.
Yeah, it is interesting. But your point there is well taken that it isn't always just that one person who can be, give you the drama. There's
Hmm.
sometimes it comes from another set of expectations that somebody has. And I've seen
Hmm.
that in software too, where well, the manager has one expectation. Some of the people
Hmm.
actually who are going to use the app have a different expectation. And
Yeah.
where I've seen some of those biggest issues is when that doesn't line up and you get stuck with a
Hmm.
solution that doesn't actually work because well, that's what the manager wants. Well, the manager doesn't do this job.
Yeah.
So let me go talk to people who do this day in, day out.
Uh-huh. And you very quickly figure out like who's paying you, like whose expectations are the most important. Or you
Right?
like there's definitely some soft skills involved in just like what are the dynamics here going on within these people who I'm
Yeah.
communicating with as a group, and whose word is more important. Yeah.
Oh, I've seen
Uh-huh.
that. I had one
Hmm.
customer who was basically like the number two person in that division. So they were
Yeah.
a very important individual. And
And
his requests were given much more weight because ultimately he's the one who is paying the bill. Like it's his budget. So,
And then you can't ask that. That's not something you can ask directly. That's something you have to kind of like get in there. And
mhm.
I think it'd be interesting for someone to put together like a strategy around how to figure out whose requests should be honored more than others, or even like a delicate way to say that.
I think there's a talk hiding in here, dealing with Codezilla or
Yeah.
something, right? Because I think
Yeah.
everybody has had that experience of a person in the project room who tries to dominate all the conversations, tries to,
Hmm.
it's my way or the highway. I'm the only one who knows the
Hmm.
technical solution. And,
Hmm. Who
I've
feels threatened by the change. Hmm.
absolutely,
Hmm.
and or I've been here longer, or I'm supposed to be the one who gets to make that decision. And,
Hmm.
it takes a fair amount of humility to be able to be like, oh, well, the new person thinks this is a good idea. Yeah, no, you're right. Actually, that is a good idea.
Hmm.
So yeah, maybe that's something I'll have to take offline to try to figure out what's hiding in there because this it's amazing to me how you're talking about wedding photography and I'm like, yeah, saw that on this project. So yeah, yeah, lots of connections in our industries.
100, yeah. Also, there'd be always a point before the wedding where I'm photographing, not always, depending on the wedding, but there'd also be often be a groomsmen, like a big group of men who it's my job to boss them around for a little while, and like how I would establish dominance pretty quickly and pick on some, make jokes and choose someone to kind of make
Right,
fun of, like
right,
good naturedly, but like a way to be like, I'm not to be messed with.
right.
I have an objective here. If you
Mm-hmm.
fall out of line, I will call you on it. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
also, yeah. Hmm.
You need that as a presenter too. Sometimes you run into that
Oh
code
yeah.
bully, in a talk, and it's like, all right, I'm gonna have to
Uh-huh.
put you back in your place, gently or not. Sometimes,
Yeah.
it depends. But
Yeah, yeah. I feel comfortable with that. Yeah. I'm
I had a
happy with
friend of
it.
mine once
Might enjoy
who
it even.
it can be a bit of a power trip. he had an individual who just kept interrupting, just kept asking questions, and just wouldn't take, let's talk about this at the break, let's take this outside. And my friend literally had to get in his personal space. Like he came around the podium and just like went and stood right next to the person. Is basically like, you and I will continue this conversation in the hallway when we're done. But right
Hmm.
now, you have to defend the rest of your audience from, this one individual who's decided
Oh
to make
yeah.
it their mission to dominate your talk.
Yeah. And are they just after a sense of importance, maybe? What is the motivation behind that?
I think that's part of it. I think sometimes I've run into an individual who thinks they could give the talk better than me and that they should be
Mm-hmm.
the one giving the talk.
Mm-hmm.
It sometimes it's the person who read something in your abstract that wasn't really there. That happens more often than
Uh,
you care to admit, that somebody just assumes this is what you're going to talk about. It's like, nope,
uh-huh.
that's literally not in the abstract. So I'm not going to cover
Uh-huh.
that. And then they
Yeah.
decide that's your fault, that you didn't meet
Okay.
their expectation, their unstated expectation,
Uh-huh.
unverbalized
Yeah.
expectation. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, it's fun. It's good times. It's good times. But I think
What's
you're well
another?
positioned because of your
Oh,
background.
thank you. Thanks. And we should probably say here that what I will be doing on this team, I'm representing people like me. Like I'm older, I'm a woman, so I'm an outlier in those ways. I'm a coding school grad, and I'm coming into the tech scene and trying to find my way. And so I'm not pretending to know a lot, but I am, as much as I joke, I'm a smart person and a
Hmm.
hard worker, and I
Hmm.
pay attention and I don't
Hmm.
assume. And I'm doing my best to navigate this, and I'm going to kind of do so publicly and with lightboard videos eventually, and hopefully be a beacon for other new people like myself. And
It's,
together we'll figure it out.
well, we're all new to some of these things. That's the other
Yeah.
part that
Mm-hmm.
annoys me, is when people are like, well, I'm an expert in this. Great. It
Mm-hmm.
really doesn't mean a lot in this space.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that much about Kubernetes. I mean, I've okay, kubectl, that's how I pronounce it, but let's
Mm-hmm.
have a debate about that, right? So I think there's an awful lot to be said for that beginner's journey and being able to point
Mm-hmm.
out, hey, this is what I struggled with, because you're not the only one. And I think that's incredibly powerful message for people to see, that not everyone is an expert on that thing yet.
Yeah. And I was just reading a book called Beginner's Mind, like a Zen
Yeah.
Buddhism book. And
Hmm.
one thing it said was ego gets in the way of learning.
Absolutely.
And yeah, that's the big thing that stuck with me from the beginning part I've read so far.
That's
But
a great quote.
it's great, right? And so I'll do my very best to not ever have an ego around this, so I can make other people feel safe, which
Yeah.
I know everyone on this team is good at that. And then also not to make assumptions about what someone might already know about, especially when I'm making the lightboard videos or explaining like 101 topics. There are a lot of things that I didn't understand, really, like how much a node is a VM or it could be physical hardware. Like I didn't even quite understand that picture. So how
Sure.
was I supposed to build Kubernetes on top of it in my
Sure.
mind?
Sure.
Um, so just really back it up.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think we make some assumptions about what people do or don't know. I was
Mm-hmm.
having this conversation with an attendee a couple years ago, and I mentioned Gang of Four, and I just assumed he'd know what that is. And he's like, "The
Mm-hmm.
what now?" And I'm like, "Well, the Gang of Four design book," and he had
Mm-hmm.
never heard of it. And I'm like,
Yeah, I have no idea what
"All
you're
right,
talking about.
yeah, well," and it's one
I
of
think
those
there's a
things.
band called Gang of Five that I may be
Probably
confusing it. Okay.
could be, although I believe one of the Gang of Four members did pass away, but I could be totally wrong on that.
Another level of confusion.
There
Great.
was this happened to me recently, where I got an email about someone's celebration of life kind of thing, and I'm like, oh, I thought he'd already died. Okay, all right, so I felt a little bad about that, right? That I actually had thought he'd already passed away. So maybe I'm completely wrong about this. It would not be the first time, to say the least. But
Hmm.
I think that's
So
great. I think that's a very powerful thing to have.
I interrupted your story a little bit. You said you had made an assumption about Gang of Four.
Oh, right. That this individual knew what that was, and so
Hmm.
it was important for me to be able to look back and go, oh, not everyone is an expert on this, or not.
Hmm.
I shouldn't assume that someone has heard of this before, because maybe they
Hmm.
haven't. And
Hmm.
it was a really stark reminder to me how powerful these 101 topics really are. The biggest
Hmm.
challenge is convincing people that they need the 101. or that
Mm-hmm.
they can benefit. That's where that ego gets in the way again. That, oh, I don't
Yeah.
need the intro stuff. Like,
Yeah.
well, maybe you do. Like, would it hurt?
Yeah.
Like, give it a try. Try
Mm-hmm.
it on. Maybe you wear it out of the store. I don't know, but
Well, and the hope is with the lightboard videos, if they're 10 minutes in length, I mean, you don't, there's nothing to lose
right,
from,
right,
like, you might want to not want to do a 101 Udemy course that will take
sure,
several hours, but
sure.
there's no harm in, yeah, popping on that video for 10 minutes.
And I think that's an important piece too. That not all of these need to be 4 hour or 3 day kind of sessions. That there's a lot of
Mm-hmm.
value in a 2 minute, 5 minute, 10 minute sort of short talk that just gets you a little nugget and maybe gives you enough to
Mm-hmm.
go, oh, now I know where else to go, or I know some
Yeah.
questions to ask.
Yeah. Or I was making an assumption that I didn't realize I was
Right,
making. So now
right,
there's some clarity that I didn't, yeah, didn't even know I
exactly.
was missing. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think too, having, this is another one of those things that I've kind of chafed at some in our industry, is bringing in more viewpoints is powerful as well, to see some of those assumptions that we didn't even think we were making because we've just
Mm-hmm.
always done it that way. That's the most dangerous phrase I think you can utter, frankly, is that's how we've always done it. And so
Mm-hmm.
having another point of view, having another perspective, with a different lived experience to me, can be really, really powerful to go, well, couldn't you just do this? Like,
Mm-hmm.
oh man, I never even thought of that. Like, exactly. So maybe we try something different. I don't know. Well, let's see. What else do we want to talk about? Okay, let's talk about where you live. Since I am wearing an Austin-based T-shirt today in your honor, how'd you
Oh,
end up in Austin, coming from OHIO?
my ex-husband got a job here.
Okay, all right. So, I think I just gained 2 pounds because I've said Austin like 3 times. So,
I didn't. I was so young then, and I knew that I didn't want to be with him anymore. And I didn't put together that whatever city we break up in as co-parents is
mm,
the city we're going to be stuck in until
mm,
our kid's 18.
okay,
But now he's 22 and off in college, and I can leave and I don't. So
yeah,
I had a bit of a Hotel California situation going for a while, and now I just bought this house, so I guess I'm doing it.
it's fine.
I,
It's fine. There's good food, a lot of good food.
yeah, and honestly, like as an artist in Austin, it was a good spot to be, and then I got priced out as an artist, and then
Sure,
did the whole like if you can't beat them, join them thing, and
exactly.
now I can afford to be here again.
See,
Yeah.
it's all good. It's all good. And you get to do things like the other day, you and I were chatting, and you were doing, and let me see if I get this right. It was heavy metal goat yoga. Is that right?
Yeah, do metal, goat yoga. Yeah,
I mean,
that's I love finding silly stuff to do around
right?
town.
And
So
that's
that was
easy to
in the
do in Austin.
spring. Yeah, goat yoga. It's at a local brewery. They
Okay.
keep a herd of Nigerian dwarf goats. There are about 50 of them, and they
Okay.
want to get it up to 100, 120. And in the spring is kidding season, and that's when
Okay.
the little babies are running around.
Aw.
And goats can start walking within hours of
Right.
being born. So
Yep.
yeah, you'll go there and they're just so wobbly and cute. And so you just do yoga and there are a bunch of goats hanging out with you. The whole like when you see like an Instagram photo with like a goat on your back or something,
Hmm.
that I never saw a goat actually jump onto a
Okay.
person. All that was staged. Like they had
Oh,
people
sure.
going around to go put
Sure.
goats on people. So sorry to burst that bubble. But you know what I did just last weekend that you would appreciate, I think,
Yes, please.
is I got a group of friends together and we went to an intro to curling class.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah. See,
Uh-huh.
yeah, that's right. You and I were talking about that. See, because
Uh-huh.
Minnesota is one of the few places where like curling is, I mean, serious is maybe taking it too far, but I believe at least some members of the U.S. curling team hail from the frozen north, unsurprisingly.
Yeah.
So, and we did do
Yeah.
that once as a team building exercise in my previous life, and
Yeah.
I still don't understand that sport, but it's fine.
They never really taught us like the point of sweeping, but
Mm,
we would do it. I like for the whole 2 hour class, anytime any of my friends had a broom in their hands and were sweeping away, it made me laugh. Like
yeah,
it's just
yeah.
it never wasn't funny. Uh
It's all
and
about getting the friction just right to put the rock, I believe it's called,
yep, the
exactly where
rock.
you want
Hmm.
it.
Yep.
And
Uh-huh.
all of these things take an amount of athleticism that I appreciate. The ability to make
Uh-huh.
this very heavy block. Spin it
Mm-hmm.
just the right rate so it goes right
Mm-hmm.
here in some place that's, I don't remember how long the rink is, but it's
Uh-huh.
not
And you're
short.
trying to knock your opponent's rocks or your own rock in a certain place too.
Right,
You gotta
right.
knock the rocks. That's part of it.
Exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. And it's
Uh-huh.
very satisfying when they collide.
Uh-huh.
That's a lot of fun.
Uh-huh.
But
Yeah.
yeah, I get tip of the hat to the people who do that as a hobby, as a sport. I mean, more power to
Yeah.
you. But
There's a league in Austin. My friends and I
of
are
course,
contemplating joining.
of
Maybe
course.
maybe in the spring. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean,
Or
it
in the
makes
fall.
sense in a place that has. Well, I was gonna say no ice, and then of course last winter you did have a lot of ice, so maybe I
Oh
shouldn't
gosh.
say that.
Yeah. I got so lucky. I feel, you know, hashtag blessed because I was getting tired of being around Austin. I was like, I just need to change. Like the weather's cold. I can't go
Sure.
do anything. And so I rented an Airbnb in Louisiana for the hell of it, just to work from for a week by
Sure.
my lonesome because it was
Sure.
still quarantine times. And that was the week it froze in Austin. So
Well, look
while
at
I
you.
was in, yeah,
Good
I
timing.
missed it. Not
Nice.
only did I miss it, but IBM was like, "Oh, any of our employees who had to leave will reimburse their hotels." So,
Even better. Even better. So you're like,
yeah,
yeah,
but
I had to leave. That's why I planned this in advance.
uh,
Exactly. At least you didn't go to
yeah.
Cancun. So,
You know what I did while I was there was Mardi Gras in New Orleans.
Ooh.
It was changed to Yardi Gras because you
Oh,
couldn't.
yeah.
They closed Bourbon Street and
Uh-huh.
all of that. So every house decorated their house like it was a parade float, and then you
Nice.
walk around the neighborhoods, and it was so great. It was
That's
really
pretty
really
cool.
fun.
That's pretty
Yeah,
cool.
it'd be like kids throwing beads at you from the balcony of the house, and all your yeah. I
Oh,
forget the names of the little trinkets they'd give you,
New
but
Orleans is fantastic.
mm-hmm,
Anybody who's dealing with that right now, I hope everybody's okay. I actually had a
mm-hmm,
producer on a thing I did recently based there, and of course, right after the first class, or or right before the first class, she's pinging me like, "Yeah, I don't have power or internet, so so and so is going to be your producer today." I'm like, "Okay," and
yeah.
so I hope everybody down there is doing all right. But
Me too. I didn't realize they were still suffering from fallout. Yeah,
well,
that sucks.
I talked to her last week, and she said there's still struggles like with gas. That like
Hmm.
it's getting better, but like at one point she had to drive an hour just to get gas, and you start to think those things that we sort of take for granted.
Hmm.
Yeah, okay, there's more to it than that. So,
Yeah, infrastructure.
kind of matters. Kind of matters. No getting around
Hmm.
that. But so,
Technology
we were
runs
talking
our
about
lives.
this a little bit in the pre-show about travel, and part of the cool part of our gig is getting to go visit places. And
Hmm.
is there any place that you're like really excited to get to sometime later this year, next year, whenever normal or whatever the new normal looks like? Any place you're dying to get to?
I'm going to answer your question with a statement, then a question. And that
Perfect.
is I had a child when I was 20 and just now got rid of him in a good way.
Ooh,
And so I'm actually freed up for global travel for really the first time of my life.
fantastic.
And so I'm very excited to travel, but I don't have a clear idea of where I want to go at all. So what
Okay.
do you think I should be excited about as someone who's not terribly well
Boy.
traveled overseas?
I mean, I love London. I mean,
Yeah.
over my shoulder, I've got Tower Bridge, and that's one of my all-time favorite places. I'm pretty sure London is number one for me on foreign cities visited. It's certainly top three. I like Paris quite a bit. I know Jakob would maybe disagree with me a little bit there because he spent
Yeah.
more time there than I have, but I do enjoy Paris quite a bit. It's
What
impossible to eat badly in Paris.
Yeah, I want to back up and ask your criteria for judging.
Oh man, that's a good question. So one of the things that I've struggled with when it comes to travel is, on the one hand, it's fun to go to places you've never been, that novel experience of
Mm-hmm.
a city, a culture, food,
Mm-hmm.
location that you've never seen before is really strong
Mm-hmm.
and really cool. But that's balanced against, yeah, I know my way around Heathrow.
Yeah.
I sadly know my way around Charles de Gaulle, and so there's, when you have familiarity, like this happened to me, I don't know, 3 years ago, I think it was. I was in London, and I was in an Uber or cab, whatever it was, from point A to point B, and I knew where we were, because I recognized landmarks, and not like the big obvious landmarks, but like, oh, well, that's this square, which means around the corner is the British Museum, which means that's got to be
Mm-hmm.
this hotel, which means that Blue Door restaurant's over there. And that's really
Mm-hmm.
fun too, when you've got that list of places that you have a comfort level with. And so that's where I've always kind of struggled, is trying to balance the comfort of, I know my way around, I know what to expect, versus
Yeah.
been there,
It's
done that,
fun.
have the t-shirt, right? And so
Uh-huh.
that is part of the challenge. I mean, London is special for me just because of some of the places I go to eat, for sure. And
Okay.
I miss core badly, and so I'm missing that, but I miss seeing
Core?
people. Core by Claire Smith. It's my number one restaurant, bar none.
Okay.
And Jakob and I are already trying to connive a way to get to London so we can go eat there again. And yeah, it's pretty special. So we'll talk about it in our next team meeting. I'll lay it on
Okay.
you thick, but
Love
I
it.
it's that I miss that stuff. There's no, but I also miss seeing my teammates. I miss seeing friends and colleagues, that we normally interact on a regular basis. This team is unique in that we are all globally distributed, but we, in a normal year, interact multiple times a month somewhere. And it's so
Okay.
strange to be in this
That's
space.
news to me.
Yeah, well, it's so strange for me that I haven't seen Josh or Jakob or Kote or Mario or anybody in our group, anywhere, and it was so
Mm-hmm.
normal for us, at least a couple times a month, you at least in passing, hey, let's go grab a cup of coffee, let's go grab dinner, whatever, and so
Mm-hmm.
it's been very strange to not have that for
Mm-hmm.
going on 2 years. But I balance that against the fact that I can still do my job, so
Uh-huh.
I'm not
Yeah.
overly complaining, I guess. But yeah, no, I think that's the interesting challenge, right? Is there a place that you've just always wanted to go from a tourist perspective, that you're just like, that's a cool place, I'd like to go visit that, and then
Mm-hmm.
sort of working backwards from there as to, okay, well, what events are in that space, or what customers are in that space, and how can I justify being there for, a few days.
I've seen in Switzerland, there's like canyoning where it's like
Mm,
part part like rock. What do you come down from the rocks?
repelling.
Rappelling. Like rappel down into a canyon, you kind of hike, you kind of swim. They're like zip lines, like that sort of adventure stuff I'm very into. Or in Poland, is it? Where's there's like hot springs and really cold place?
Oh, Iceland, I think, has some of that.
Iceland,
Reykjavik.
Iceland,
Yep.
yeah. That seems really that
Mm-hmm.
like that kind of stuff is very appealing. And then culturally well, I'm I'm pretty for for a lot of reasons. I'm passionately vegan, but that doesn't mean I judge others. And they have these vegan tours you can go on where you
Mm.
can experience cultures in like Sri Lanka
Oh,
or
sure.
India, but where it's a little more offbeat, but they're determined to be a positive contribution to the culture. So
Sure.
so you actually get language lessons from the
Ooh.
locals, and they'll do cooking lessons with
Oh,
you and teach
sure.
you how to make their cuisine. And so it's a lot more uh, the tourism is meant to like regenerate and help the locals instead of pulling from it. And it's a small operation. It's like
Sure.
veg voyages, I think it's called, or something. So that's my whole family's vegan. So we're thinking of doing a trip to Sri Lanka
Nice.
in the spring of next year. Yeah.
Nice.
Through that
Well,
service.
well, a friend of the show, Paul, is the one who taught me about secret food tours. And
Yeah.
and so he and I did one of those in Istanbul. That was really fun.
Oh,
And
yeah.
I did a couple last time I was in Paris, including, and the one I enjoyed the most was the secret food tour, like dessert round. And so it
Nice.
was, half a dozen different chocolate ice cream type places. And yeah, that was cool. I have notes from that one, to say the least. But I miss that. I miss being able to experience some of those things, that you just can't get in your local neighborhood. And I mean, I
Yeah.
balance that against the fact that I've gotten to spend, infinitely more time with my family, which I don't normally get to
Mhm.
do. And so there's trade-offs, to say the least. So,
Yeah.
you know, but
Have you ever been snorkeling or scuba diving? That's very appealing to
I
me
have not
also.
done that. I know some people who are like scuba certified, whatever that acronym is,
Hmm.
and I know they love it. They speak very highly of it, but
Hmm.
I've not had that opportunity as of yet.
It's possible to get scuba certified in Austin, but then what? Like, where do you
Right.
go to Lake Travis? Like, that doesn't seem like it's,
As
you can
interesting.
see all the zebra
Mm-hmm.
mussels on the bottom that
Mm-hmm.
are polluting everything. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I've got a buddy who he's certified. He and his wife usually in the winter will go for a trip somewhere in the Caribbean and they'll dive
Hmm.
at least a couple times while they're there. So I think that's part of why he does it, is mostly as an excuse to do something when you're in a warmer climate for a couple
Hmm.
weeks. But yeah, I've not gotten around to that one yet. I don't know how I feel about being under the water necessarily.
What's nice? What's something on your short list in terms of new skills to learn?
Oh, geez. It's funny that this just came up. One of my buddies, we've got this text thread, and he made some comment about how, what'd you do this weekend? Oh, I decided to learn an editor, and so he was talking about emacs, of course. And
Hmm.
there's a part of me that has often thought like I really need to get better at least the emacs key bindings, because a lot
I
of
don't
those
know.
do work in like on Mac OS. A lot of that stuff just
Will
works.
will you explain Emacs to me? Is it, we even spell it?
EMACS, and I mean
Okay,
I believe I'm right. I can't spell to save my life. I make my computer spell check everything.
right on.
So Emacs, the running joke on Emacs, if I get this right, it's a wonderful operating system with that only lacks in a decent text editor, even though of course it is a text editor, but that's the running joke, right? That you can
Okay,
build
got it.
everything and anything inside Emacs. The people I know that are deep into it, like their whole lives seemingly revolve around Emacs. They use org
Okay.
mode, they use this, they use that, and that's a little much for my taste, but
Can
you know,
can there be analogy between calling your iPhone a phone? Like the phone part is like such a small piece of it.
right? Right? I've
Yeah.
tried to delete that
So
app
Emacs.
actually.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
it's that's actually a pretty darn good analogy, I think,
Okay.
because
That's what I'm
your
picturing.
phone is really a supercomputer in your pocket that happens to have the ability to connect to a cellular network, and you can
Uh-huh.
do this voice communication thing.
Uh-huh.
And it's really annoying when people like make you do that. I'm like, just
Mhm.
text me. Why are you? Why are you? I
Uh-huh.
my in-laws are very good at like calling, and it's like, you guys, you could just text, that would just be better, just text.
Yeah. I'm finding older people don't text because they can't see their phones very well.
Oh, that's understandable. I mean, my eyes are
Hmm.
pretty bad, so I can totally relate to that. I've gotten to that
Hmm.
stage
So
where I'm kind of like, what's this saying? But
yeah,
yeah,
you're
no.
when you're someone's parents-in-law, you're going to be calling them and they're going to wonder why you don't
Oh,
text.
no doubt, no doubt. Or it'll be something, right? I've long
Uh-huh.
since realized that there's always going to be some technology that you're just not going to get your head wrapped around, and you're going to have to ask
Hmm.
your kids or your grandkids, like, how does this? And I get that. I've seen that with my kid. And I'm just like, yeah,
Hmm.
I don't understand what you're doing here. This doesn't make any sense to me. Like
Yeah.
it's all about like YouTube for him, and
Uh-huh.
YouTubers. Oh, this YouTuber I watch. I'm like,
Uh-huh.
okay, all right.
That's yeah. When Peyton went first to college, like, oh, let me show you how to do your laundry. And he's like, no, I'll just watch a YouTube video. Like, why am I even here?
Oh my god. I Now that is one thing I appreciate, is the fact that if there is anything you need to do, almost without exception, you can find a video of how to do it.
Uh-huh.
And I'm a
Yeah.
visual learner, so for me that's
Hmm.
awesome. We
Hmm.
had dinner at my in-laws last night to celebrate Christine's birthday, and they said like, "Hey, as long as you're here, could
Hmm.
you reprogram our garage door opener?" Blah blah. I'm like, "Yeah,
Hmm.
sure." And I'm like, "Wait, how the heck do you do that?" So do 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 do
Yeah.
do. Oh, yeah, there's a video. Oh, okay. I just gotta do this. All right, that seems reasonable. Maybe.
Uh-huh.
So we'll see. We'll see.
So your reputation as a programmer remains untarnished.
I
Thank you,
hope
YouTube.
so. Although I couldn't QA everything I did, because the problem was one of their garage door openers would also control their neighbor's garage door, and their neighbor was
Ah.
adamant that my in-laws had to fix that problem, even though my in-laws had been there before them. So really, it was your garage door that's programmed incorrectly. So you should probably change yours.
Yeah.
And I did not have the, I guess, courage to QA if I actually did wipe out that button. I was able to
Okay.
program another button, and that did work as
Uh-huh.
expected. And so I told my mother-in-law, I said, "Hey, listen, at some point you should just try this button and see what happens. And then if it
Yeah.
opens their garage door, oh, I'm so sorry. But
Or just open it over and over again on purpose, and then it'll be in their
Yeah,
best
well,
interest.
I mean, I tend to be a little more aggressive maybe than she is, but I told her, I said, you should just go tell her that she needs to reset if it still opens their garage door, which I don't think it will, but it might. I said, then you should just tell them they're going to have to reset their codes, or else you're going to have the ability to open their garage door whenever you feel like it. And then
Mm-hmm.
just let them be aware of the fact that you can always open their garage door if you feel
Mm-hmm.
the need. So.
Keep some good drinks in the fridge for me
Right,
in
right.
the
I'm just gonna
garage.
wander over some random Tuesday and just see how you are. I mean that would motivate me to change whatever I needed to change. If my neighbor Jim came over and said, "By the way, I'm able to open your garage door," I'd be like, "Oh, well, let me
Mhm.
reset that then."
Yeah.
Yeah, the joys of technology. But, well, let's see. We should probably do a few lightning round questions here.
Oh.
So, what's your favorite meal? What's your go-to, comfort meal kind of thing?
Um, I'm a big hippie. There's a restaurant here called Casa de Luz. And so I go there once or twice a week, and
Okay,
they have a fixed menu. You go in, you pay your
way to do it.
$14. That includes tax and tip and everything. And they give you a gigantic plate of food that's all like vegan, whole food, no oil, and then a soup. And yeah, and I eat and eat and eat. And it has like, it's all like hippie music in the background and twinkle lights. It's dim and like, yeah, it's my jam. It makes me happy.
See, I don't remember if we talked about this when we were going through the interview process, but that is part of our team's superpowers is eating. We
Yeah.
eat well, so
Uh-huh.
it's going to work out famously, as they say.
Yeah.
You're going to
No,
enjoy
I
that part of the gig.
actually, you talked a good deal about barbecue during
Oh, that
during
doesn't
the
surprise me.
interview, and I was careful to skirt the vegan thing. I didn't.
We don't hold it against you in any way, shape, or form. So it just leaves more barbecue for the rest of us. It's totally
Yeah.
fine. Totally fine.
Uh-huh.
How about coffee, espresso, or tea? I don't remember where we landed on your caffeine take of approach.
I like all of the above.
Good answer.
It's
Good
kind of
answer.
like, is it a good answer? Sometimes when I ask people what kind of music they like, and they're like, I like all music. You're just like, that
Mm,
means you like no music, you know?
yeah.
So I do drink all three of those things regularly.
Excellent. Excellent. So,
Yeah.
that is something we're very good at too, is finding very good coffee. So
I'm
we'll help you out there.
I don't think I have very discriminating taste when it comes to coffee, so I'll be interested
We'll fix
in
that. Don't
learning
worry.
from
Yeah.
y'all. Yeah.
We'll solve that problem for you.
Okay.
Pie or cake?
Neither. Pie
Oh, okay. I mean, that's fine. It's fine. Did you have
and
a
fresh berries.
what is your preferred dessert of choice?
Like I eat so much fruit. I eat
Nice.
it. Well, you've seen me on team calls
With
all the time. I have a big bowl
chopsticks.
with my chopsticks. Uh-huh.
Which blows me out of
Because
the water. I don't know how you do that. I mean, there would just be fruit all over my floor, and my wife would give me the look that suggests that was a bad idea.
for the first few times, but eventually you'd get good at
I mean, in theory, but you've never seen me try to use chopsticks. So
it.
the first
I have
time
to
I
ask
ate
them.
sushi, I like fumbled with that, and I mean, I did okay, but I would just sort of
Uh-huh.
like, shovel it into my mouth. I wasn't trying to like, grab it or whatever. But well, how about oceans or mountains? Since like me, you live in a place that has neither.
Oh, well, there's a time and a place for each.
Yeah, truth,
I mean, yeah. I mean, if it's super cold, maybe not a mountain. If it's too cold to enjoy it,
truth.
if the beach is to Corpus Christi, that's a no. Also, like
Yeah.
it depends on the mountain and depends on the beach.
Ooh, that's a good answer. That's more well thought out than most. Well played. It's all about
It's
context,
natural. It really is. Can't make assumptions. It's part of my shtick.
right? Right.
Hmm.
So I have a pretty good idea how you're going to answer this one, knowing where you live. But food trucks or Michelin stars?
Oh, food trucks.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Uh-huh.
You
I
you have
mean,
a thriving food truck community.
yeah. I guess like if you lived in a place with bad food trucks, you would choose.
Right.
And to be fair, I've never been to a Michelin star restaurant,
All
so
right.
I don't have the full range of experiences.
We'll
So
solve
I
that
mean,
problem.
yeah, I'm looking forward to that. Yeah. We have some super cool restaurants in Austin, and I like going a couple of times a year for a special occasion.
Yeah.
but it's not as much as other people, probably maybe like yourself, where it's more of a sport and you do it often.
Sure.
Yeah.
I mean, in fairness, when I'm in Austin, I try to go to Torchy's at least as many days as I'm there. You know, and
What do
usually
you
I'm
like
like
from
in a,
Torchy's?
oh gosh, Trailer Park is pretty high on my list, especially if
Uh-huh.
it's trashy. I do like the Tipsy Chick quite a bit.
Nice.
Man,
And
it's
those are
hard to go
dinner
wrong.
tacos, right? I
They
was
do
kind of
have
getting that.
breakfast.
Yeah, they have
I don't think I've ever had the breakfast taco though. Not
yeah,
sure.
breakfast tacos are a thing I miss when I go to other
Yeah,
parts of the country and world.
yeah.
It's just like, what?
Well,
You
just
don't have a breakfast
good
taco.
tacos. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that's the other part. And I keep hoping because Torchy's keeps expanding, and I keep
Mhm.
hoping that they'll land somewhere here in the Twin Cities because we have plenty of sort of upscale hippie kind of places. So I mean, come on,
Mm-hmm.
give us the Torchy's. I would eat there
Wait,
regularly.
you're counting Torchy's as the upscale hippie place?
Well, maybe so. I'm thinking of it in terms of, or maybe I should say quirky.
Okay, okay.
With all
I
their
can get
not
behind
safe
quirky.
for,
Yeah, their
work
branding.
names and the branding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So maybe that's a better way of phrasing it. So
Okay.
you got me thinking hippie. So, but yeah, I guess I wouldn't call them hippie. Um,
Yeah.
how about Game of Thrones versus Lord of the Rings?
I've read all the books,
Okay.
unless has a new Game of Thrones book come out anytime recently? No. So
Nope.
I've read all the books,
Nope.
yeah, but I haven't seen all the Game of Thrones.
Oh,
I
okay.
think I watched up to the Red Wedding, and
Aha.
it's which I already knew was coming because I read the book.
Right, right.
But I think Lord of the Rings is more my style. I think Game of Thrones is a little too gratuitous for my
Yeah,
taste.
yeah, the violence can be a little over the top and
Yeah.
unnecessary in some places. And have you ever seen the reaction videos of people who saw the
I
Red Wedding but didn't know
but
it was
didn't know what was
coming?
gonna happen.
Oh
No.
my God, it's yeah, it's interesting.
Oh, I feel for them.
Uh-huh.
I
Uh-huh.
uh
Well,
uh
you would think people would have figured out very quickly in that series that do not fall in love with any character
and yeah,
because
by the
he will
beginning, by
kill
the end of season
anybody.
one.
Yeah,
Uh-huh.
yeah. That should have been an eye opener that he is not going to follow that trope at all. In fact, he
Mhm.
delights in going in the exact opposite direction. Oh, this beloved character. Oh, you
Uh-huh.
think she's going to get her comeuppance? Oh, ha ha ha. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It's
Eh,
good times. That's good times. And
yeah.
to bring it all back to Ted Lasso, the I guess you would not have seen the scene where they walk Cerisi through the city there, ringing the bell,
Mhm.
shame,
Okay.
shame.
Okay.
That the woman who plays that character is on Ted Lasso.
Rebecca.
Yes, she's
Okay.
awesome, awesome. So
Yes.
I love that show. Can't say enough good
Yeah.
things about Ted Lasso. But,
Agreed.
and I don't know if Neil's even watching to be able to call me on that, but I guarantee you next time I have him on the show, or when I have him on the show later this year, we will talk. Oh, he is here, so
Okay.
Neil is there. So see, there you go, Neil.
There you
I
go.
got my gratuitous Ted Lasso comments in, but we'll have to catch up on where you're at episode wise before I leave anything out. But
Are you
let's see
talking to
what
Neil or me?
I'm
Who's
talking to
Neil?
Neil.
Hi,
Sorry.
Neil.
Yep,
Nice to meet you.
Neil's up to speed. All right, he's current.
Yeah,
I'm current too. We caught up last
me
night,
too.
Neil. So I'm all up on my Ted Lasso world. All right, let me throw one more at you here just for fun. How about action comedies or drama?
Action, comedies, drama. Comedies.
Yeah.
Ac- Action can be interesting, but I find the action parts we were just talking about kind of boring. Like I
Mm,
know our main character is going to make it to the end.
right.
I can try to appreciate the choreographed elements, but mostly
Sure.
I'm just like waiting for that sequence to end. Um, oh, thank you, Neil. Oh, I appreciate that. Um, and drama, I just don't, I'm protective of my emotions and I kind of don't like it when
Mm-hmm.
someone else makes me feel things
Mm-hmm.
against my consent.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
Christine was watching something the other day, and I don't know which show it was. I don't remember. And whatever happened at the very end, she's like, "No, you can't. No, they can't do this." And I'm just like, glad I didn't get invested in that show. Like,
yeah,
that's all I need right now. Yeah, I completely agree on that front. So,
yeah. And This full disclosure, I have a brother who died, and he died when I was pregnant 20 years ago,
Sure.
but it's still like a little bit of a tender spot.
Yeah.
So if I'm watching a movie and then like some beloved character dies in a certain way, it can touch
Right.
that, and then
Right.
I'm wrecked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I
And
hear
so
that.
I don't like being vulnerable to
See,
it.
I hate it when commercials manipulate you. And I agree, we don't see a lot of commercials anymore, but boy, does that
Yeah.
drive me nuts when a commercial plays with my emotions. Like, really? Come on. Yeah, and you're going to use it to sell like dish soap.
Yeah.
Please.
I'm gonna extra not buy your brands, although I'll remember it, and I
Well,
resent you for
and
that.
I guess that's their goal. I don't know. I don't know. I just work here.
I remember first learning about the concept of cradle to grave in college and just being
Right?
horrified. Yeah.
Right. Well, if we can catch you when you're vulnerable, you'll be our consumer for life. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
why I have to switch the brands I
Right.
use just
Right.
on principle. Yeah.
It is interesting how you get oddly attached to
Mhm.
a brand. And you're like, well, no, that's my toothpaste. Like I can't
Yeah.
even stand this other toothpaste. It's like it's kind of the same thing. Like, oh no, oh no, totally different.
This
Like, look at the
represents a
packaging.
piece of me. Yeah.
Well, sure, it does become part of your identity. There's no getting around
Uh-huh.
that, and it is interesting how brands tie into that, that you want to be associated with this identity. And, I mean, that's
Hmm.
very obvious I think about Nike or Adidas or
Hmm.
anybody like that. I mean, that's a huge part of what they're
Hmm.
doing when they sponsor athletes and teams, is,
Yeah.
well, you want to be associated with that, right? And it's like, yeah, yeah, I
Yeah.
do. Yeah. Yeah, give me more of
Uh-huh.
that, so.
Yeah.
Well, we have covered the gamut today, and it's been a lot
Yeah.
of fun to get to know you a little better. I appreciate you hanging out with me.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on. It's been
Absolutely.
amazing.
And
Every bit as fun as I thought it might be.
I'm so looking forward to like seeing you in real life too, by the way.
Yeah.
So, and I'm so delighted that we'll do everything in our power to show you lots of good places to eat and get you lots of good
And
coffee.
yeah, teach me about coffee.
Fantastic.
I'm looking forward to it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Whitney. I appreciate you hanging out with me. Next week, I have Olga is going to get the whole treatment here, so I'm very excited about that. Be a little later at night for her. She's not, in fact, in my time zone. She is based in Europe, so luckily for me, she's willing to hang out on a Monday evening. So I'm looking forward to chatting with her. So anyway, well, thank
Nice.
you again, Whitney, and we'll see you at the team hangout here later this week.
All right. See you soon, Nate.
Cheers.
Bye.